Hello and welcome to my podcast. Today we are addressing a very interesting topic. Is English enough? If you already do speak English, do you need to study any other language? If yes, then which language? And if no, then why? Is English that good that when you know it, you are good for life, for your job, your career, your traveling, everything is fine? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome to my podcast. I am a Mozambican English teacher. I teach English lessons here and also give motivations on learning English. I take you through the whole process. I also read stories. I teach how to pronounce better, and I also teach the American accent. Now, this is my first podcast where I'm going to be helping students like you, hopefully students who are at least B1 and B2 and above, to practice their listening skills while listening to my podcasts. Okay? So I really hope you will be enjoying the podcast and listen attentively while you do your chores, while you do your workout, while you work or do whatever. I'm thankful that you chose me to be your company for this time. So, there are over 80 countries that have English as their first or second primary language in the country. So, that is a very, very good number. There are many countries that speak English. I'm even going to dare say that every country in the world speaks English. And of course, that doesn't mean that every single person in every single country speaks English. Of course not. But I'm saying that in every single country, in all countries, you will be finding English speakers. Maybe you are not a native English speaker. You weren't born in an English-speaking country, but you speak English, and you are not the only one. Why is that? Why is English so popular? Well, that comes to the diversification of the empire, of the English empire a long time ago. And also the easiness with which you could do business and trade if you were able to speak English. But that's not the main focus of today's podcast. So, looking at all of these countries that do speak English as their first or second language, you can say, but okay, that doesn't really mean much. But then we have big countries, the first world countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, United States of America. Those three countries are really big, especially in terms of influence. And of course, the USA is the biggest of them all, having influence all over the world, even influencing Canada and the UK itself. With that much impact, your culture and your values are going to overflow to other countries and other regions. That is why we have American media, American movies, American series all over the world. The most watched superhero movie of all time, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be, is the Avengers Infinity War. If not that, then maybe Endgame. Where is that movie from? Of course, it's from America. You know? And in which language is that movie spoken? Oh, the movie was made in English. How many people do you think watched that movie? So many people. I don't even have a number for you. So, because America and the countries who speak English have so much impact on the world, they get to make the rules. If you want to do business with the US, it doesn't really matter if you're China or Japan or even North Korea. You have to speak English with them. If the American diplomats go to China, they are going to speak English. They're not going to change their language. They're not going to start speaking Mandarin. No. But if the Chinese come to the US, then they have to now speak English, or at least bring a translator and interpreter to make communication easier. They set the rules. You can't really do international business or diplomacy without English. Have you ever seen tourists, especially Americans, even the British, or any other tourists who speak English? In every country you go that does not have English as its first language, you are going to be welcomed with a plaque or a tourist guide, something, a book, a guide, anything that is going to be in English, even if the country does not share the same alphabet. So to answer the question, is English enough? Yes. Yes, it is. If you speak English, you don't really need to know any other language. But what exactly do I mean? Do you know English and then just stop? Even if you have to go travel in a country where they don't speak English, you're not going to learn because English is enough? Of course not. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is that for the majority of your endeavors or the things you want to do, you are going to be good to go if you speak English, Yeah. But if you have to teach a foreign language, then English is not going to be enough. If you want to be a translator, an interpreter, maybe a tourist guide for some other country, for some other place, then English is simply not going to be enough. But for the majority of things, for books, most books are written in English. Educational material in English. The biggest companies in the world in English. The biggest businesses, everything is conducted in English. Pop music, the biggest influencers on earth, they're mostly American. And they speak English. Of course, we also have Asians, but they are not as popular. They're not as iconic as the ones who speak English. So, there is a push all over the world that if you want to get a job, you have to speak English. That if you want to get ahead, you have to know English. Even if your job doesn't require you to speak English on a daily basis, your job interview is probably gonna be in English, or at least ask you if you have any proficiency and demand that you prove it, even if you're not going to use it. So yeah, English is enough. But you don't have to stop in English just because it is enough. If you need to study other languages for, career purposes, then go. But you can also just get by if you don't need to with English. And that is it. English is and it can be enough. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to help you practice listening to somebody speaking in English with an American accent. So, thank you for being here. And I hope that this podcast has been useful for you in listening to English. I'm going to be making more, and hopefully this has been useful. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.